Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Push one in the chat if you can hear me. All right, thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 757, Black Tech Talk. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. Also, if you want to engage in this discussion, there'll be a link dropped in the chat. We'll go over any questions that props up. So let me drop the link in the chat for those who want to get on the panel. And then we'll get started. All right. Been talking with a few folks offline through email, and they've been asking me about, should they go the network admin path or the SysAdmin path? And here's my take on this. I think the pandemic has changed the way IT functions when it comes to roles and responsibilities. And so what I'm seeing personally in my observations in the workplace is that we didn't let anybody go per se, but what ended up happening was roles got consolidated. And so SysAdmin, network admin, we don't really have that anymore. Now it's kind of, IT ops is what they call it now. IT ops, that's the name of the group. And that's kind of, you have, regular IT ops, and then you have senior, and then you have a principal IT ops person who is basically taking on the lead role, so to speak. And then your architect is your director. And so whether or not you go SysOps, network, or I shouldn't say SysOps, SysAdmin or network admin, I think that I think those roles are starting to be consolidated now, and I don't think you should focus on one over the other. At least not this year going forward. Maybe like last year we could have had a different conversation, but I do think that this year, I think, changes everything. People are taking on more responsibilities than they used to prior to the pandemic. And so let me pull up let me share my screen, see, so y'all can see what I'm seeing here. Let's go to one. All right, let me know if you can see what I'm seeing in the chat. All right, cool. Just give me a second. Let me, all right, cool. All right, what we're looking at here is a role that was posted. Who knows how old this is? Probably a few weeks old. Let me zoom in as well. You guys can get a better look at this. All right, so it says SysEngineer role for Eversource, right? And it says responsible for administration and support of physical and virtual Windows server environment, VMware infrastructure, application servers, desktops, and the hardware and storage needed to run our business critical applications. Provide technical expertise to support the planning, coordination, programming, and implementation of projects, releases, upgrades, or changes at the OS, software, and hardware level. Use and maintain the range of products and productivity tools that support the operating environments. Ensure stable performance for environments through monitoring, performance tuning, perform capacity planning, performance prediction, plan and implement major software upgrades, ensuring change management procedures and methodologies are implemented and followed. Essential functions, manage moderately sized projects initiatives, typically viewed as subject matter expert, SME within discipline, configuring, integrating, supporting, and maintaining environments that host our highly available vendor software packages that are critical to our business. Has expert knowledge to support the infrastructure and troubleshoot complex issues, Microsoft Windows Stack, VMware, vCenter, ESX servers, Linux server, and storage hardware, and working knowledge of backup and recovery. Okay. Coach, review, and delegate work to more junior engineers, mentor junior engineers. Let me stop and say this. The idea of a junior engineer, I don't believe in this concept, okay? There's no such thing as a junior engineer. Either you're an engineer or you're not. There's no such thing as junior, no such thing as entry level, because in my experience, what typically happens is that you usually pick somebody up who already has prior experience, right, into the engineer role. So sysadmins, desktop admins, they have some kind of experience. A junior person implies that they don't have enough accrued hours to hold a senior title. I think that's bunk. But let me not filibuster on that. Works to achieve day-to-day objectives with significant impact on work area, contribute to the development of goals of the discipline and planning efforts, budgets, operational plans, etc. Provide measurable input to the new products, processes, and standards, or standards and operational plans to implement business strategies. May have responsibility for communicating with parties external to the organization, customers, vendors, etc. Work to influence parties within and outside of the job function at the operational level regarding policies and procedures. What are the technical skills? Expert knowledge in Windows Stack, VMware, physical servers, backups, working knowledge of MS SQL, database servers, SCADA, because Eversource is a grid company, they're an energy company. Handle open-ended problems and ambiguity well. Big red flag for me there. Maintain awareness of industry trends, policies, and tools in standards and best practices. Change control. Enhance end-to-end environment configuration needed to support testing procedures of changes being deployed. Contribute to documentation, vendor management, implement proactive monitoring and automation, tools, scripting to automate tasks, enhance and simplify support and proactively address issues to minimize business impacts, and show inclusiveness. So they're looking for the DEI factor here. Now it says bachelor's degree or advanced degree, doesn't specify in what though, right? Minimum of 5 years, okay? And you must be willing to travel to a few places. So they're going back into the office. There's no way to get around this. I mean, you can't really manage anything unless you your physical stacks in the data centers and the telecom closets and some of the service that's in the office. Because believe it or not, there's still a lot of on-prem equipment still on site. And so they have not gotten rid of a lot of those things. And plus they're an energy company, so they have quite a few IoT and other sort of SCADA configurations in place at multiple sites across the region. So all that being said, salaries around 134K, which is actually pretty good. And so plus the benefits package. But that aside, what I'll say about a sys engineer role, where we're at right now is network admin, SysAdmin. I think that's dead now. I think either you are a sys engineer or you're not going forward. I think that that's going to be the way that they determine who gets promoted and who doesn't get promoted, who's really doing the work and who's not doing the work. And so the question that was asked over the weekend was sysadmin versus network admin. Should I go either way? And I'm saying maybe we should rethink this whole sysadmin, network admin thing, and let's focus on sys engineer. Now, this came up today. The link is in the chat if y'all want to join. If you don't, we can peel out of here early. Linux Foundation started promoting their 50% discount on boot camps and bundles, okay? So we see it right here, save up to 50%, invest in yourself, take home best in class awards. Offer ends February 28th, so that's sometime next week. And what I want to do is kind of go over a couple of these. Expand this out. And so the boot camps, I've only taken the boot camp once. And it's work at your own pace. It's not like traditional boot camp. So it's more of an at your leisure sort of perspective. And so let's look at the cloud engineer boot camp real quick. Okay, so it says Cloud Engineer Bootcamp. The program will prepare you for an absolute beginner to learn the most in-demand cloud computing skills as little as 6 months. Start your new career today. Why Bootcamp? Become a certified cloud engineer, one of 15 highest paying IT jobs in as little as 6 months. Interact with live with instructors who are experts in the cloud industry. Set the pace that's right for you, input from the experts, earn well-respected certifications, which show real-world skills employees look for, learn from the host of Cloud Native Computing Foundation, which oversees the most important cloud technologies, launching new successful career as a cloud engineer with salaries in excess of $100,000. We know that that statement is somewhat true because we just looked at a role that was $130,000, okay? So we know that there's some validity here to what they're saying. Me personally, I haven't taken this boot camp, but I have taken a different one. It took me about a year to get through it between work and other errands and things that I was, going back to the continent and whatnot. And so I would say, yes, take it if you plan on being in the field. Don't take it if you're not comfortable with the technologies yet. Get comfortable with the technologies first, and then we can, then you want to have a conversation on whether or not this makes sense. But this expires on the 28th. I don't get paid for this, so I don't benefit from this, but it came in my email this morning, and I thought that, it'd be a good idea to actually add this to the discussion tonight. And so it says the format enables students to study at their own pace, but also get support via interactive forums and live video chat with instructors. One of the things that I noticed with a lot of Black IT people is that we get trapped in positions that don't lead to upward mobility. So there's a lot of glass ceiling effect that impacts Black people, but more importantly, Black men for the sake of discussion. And so what I see happening typically is that they'll offer an opportunity to you, but then you don't actually go anywhere after that. And sometimes that works out to some people's benefit. But if you want to get to the next level, sometimes you may have to leave the organization. But I do think that a boot camp or another certification actually does help in this area. And so we're talking about network admin versus sysadmin. I think that that whole entire concept should be blown out of the water now, right? I think we should be focusing on sysengineer, SysEng, right? SYSEng, right? That's what we typically call it in office, is SysEng. Go talk to the SysEng guys, go talk to them. They're the ones who do this, this, and this, right? And then we have data engineering, we call them data eng. Go talk to the data eng guys. They're the ones who are involved with the data scientists and who work with big data lakes and things like that. They're involved in that aspect. And so I'm saying all that to say that we have to carve a new niche and open up a new sort of terminology that defines what our ambitions are and where we want to go. And so I do think that this makes a lot more sense if you're already in the position. If you're not in the position, I don't know if it makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So week 1 through 4 is Linux System Administration Essentials, okay? That's the first month. And then the second month is week 5 through 9, which is Linux Networking and Administration, okay? Week 10 is Linux Foundation Certified System Administration Exam. I haven't taken this exam, but I heard it is really hard. And what I've heard is that if you pass this exam, you can do your job as a Linux admin engineer, okay? That's my understanding of it. I've purchased a certification a couple of years ago. I just did not have enough flexibility in a 1-year time frame, and it expired on me. But it's good though. It is actually good. And so how I see it is that if you're not dedicated to the boot camp, it's not going to work. Okay. Weeks 11 through 14, container fundamentals. You're going to need to know containers. DevOps is weeks 15 through 18. DevOps is just about culture. I think it has less to do with the physical task work and more about how cultures work within the organization, okay? And then you have Kubernetes fundamentals, weeks 19 to 20 to the 23rd week, sorry. And then weeks 24 is certification for Kubernetes administrator. That being said, man, I think it has a place, but I also think that if you're not ready and comfortable with the technologies, I think that you're not going to be able to do anything with this. And so the idea of being a SysEng, right, systems engineer, I think there's a place for it, but I also think that you need to be ready to just go, right? You need to be in go mode. And what's happening here is that a lot of guys are pacing back and forth, contemplating, should I go sysadmin? Should I go network admin? I think that the SysEng is going to be the new title, right? Because now it's above everything else. And you don't really see too many guys who claim to be SysEng or too many people who claim to be SysEng. And so that's my perspective on that. What's going on, Complex?
Hey, Mike, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm chilling, bro. You?
Good, good, good. Hey, there was a few questions in the chat for you. I don't know if you caught them.
No, I'm just going through this real quick.
You're going to go through them? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to go through this real quick.
Okay.
And so I do think that when it comes to SysEng, like the job description we saw earlier said, OS, networking, and sys configuration, these sort of vital business continuity objectives need to be met. So it's not just about, let me let me load up Linux, or let me load up Windows Server, or let me load up VMware. It's not just like that. There are certain procedures that need to be followed before you can actually engage in at that level. And plus, you're an SME at that point. You know, the idea of just free balling things and just doing, you know, shooting from the hip, that goes away. Everything has to be process driven. Okay. Okay. Networking, right? Networking is the other half. OS is one half. Networking is the other half. Cisco, CCNP, they changed the whole entire parameters of this. It's probably been a year or so ago, a year or so now, but all the parameters have changed. Before, you used to have your CCNA before getting your CCNP. Now you don't need that, okay? Now there's no prerequisites. So here we see 35401 Encore. Implementing and operating Cisco Enterprise Network core technologies. I have never worked in an environment where they did not have Cisco, okay? I've never worked in an environment where they never had Cisco. Before, you used to be, you know, used to be beholden to command line. Now they have Meraki. Things are in the GUI now. Things are different. Cisco bought SourceFire and then turned it into Cisco's Firepower intrusion detection system. So everything's a lot more GUI based. It's very rare that you're ever going to have to go back into the command line. But I haven't been in there in a few years, so I can't even tell you what it even looks like now. But what I will say is that things have changed probably the last 5 or 6 years. There's been some dramatic changes. I was a part of a transformation project before with the intrusion detection platform. So I know that things have changed because I saw it with my own eyes. So I know what's going on in there. So here's what I'll say. You're going to need a CCNA, or I mean Cisco certification. That's a given. But which one do you go for? And I say, here I'll say the CCNP makes a lot of sense only because it doesn't have any prerequisites involved, right? It's $400, not that difficult to come up with if you're talking about your base pay. So, I'm sorry, I got some dings in the back. It says this exam tests your knowledge and skills related to implementing core enterprise network technologies, including dual stack architecture, IPv4 and IPv6. At this point, IPv6 all the way at the endpoints, and then IPv4, more than likely you're still holding on to those legacy devices with IPv4 on them. But your environment may vary. So virtualization, the virtualization aspect is being covered here, right? You don't need to go out and get VMware certification. Here's my advice on virtualization certifications. Let the employer, let your job pay for the VMware certs. You should not have to come out of your pocket for VMware certs. If they want you to be VMware certified, let them pay for it. Outside of that, don't even worry about it. Infrastructure, that's a given. We talked about that in the job description. Network assurance, that comes with the role. Security, so network security, that's a given. Remember, security operations already has their own responsibilities. You don't want to cross over into their territory. You want to own the domain that you're in, and that's what they're focusing on here. The network security aspect is your responsibility. Security operations is their responsibility. Let them deal with SecOps. That's not your responsibility, okay? Automation. There's going to be some automation here. How you bring on different domain controllers and other sort of intrusion detection, intrusion protection, different sort of security devices. Okay. Hold on a second. Sorry. Automation, that's a given. So like I was saying before I was interrupted here, I think that in my experience, automation, it's a fantasy. Very few people have ever made it function in the way that it's advertised, okay? When it comes to automation, you want to automate repeatable tasks. Things like logging into different systems after you're doing patching, okay? Logging into different systems after you're doing patching over the weekend, if you have 100, 200, 300 plus systems, you don't want to log into each system. You want those things to automate, okay? I'm sorry, I'm just being interrupted here. Yeah, KEJ says in the chat, shell scripting, good skill to have also. Absolutely. But I think that comes with the cloud engineering bootcamp, right? That's what they're going over, right? That's what they're talking about. Okay. So Linux, from an OS standpoint, 99.99% of your work is going to be on Linux. Very few times you're ever going to log into a Windows server and do a lot of command line work. Very little, in my experience. Now, the opposite is true when it comes to security. You're going to spend a lot more time in Windows than you do in Linux, but that's that's just a side issue. But when it comes to system engineering, from what I know, you're going to spend a lot more time in Linux than you're going to spend in Windows, because there's a lot more of your technologies happening in, in Ubuntu and Red Hat. The reason why a company's going to choose Red Hat is because it's warranted, right? IBM bought Red Hat. Red Hat has warranties. That's the business. Nobody ever got fired for buying IBM, and no one ever gets fired for buying Cisco. That's the rule of thumb in the industry. That being said, Ubuntu in the non-prod and Red Hat in the prod, right, in production. That's easy to understand. I haven't met anybody who's been Red Hat certified, and I haven't met anybody who's been Ubuntu certified. So I don't think that Linux certifications have that much of a differing factor on whether or not you get hired. But what I do know is the Linux Foundation certifications make a lot more sense because it's vendor neutral and it's agnostic. It doesn't matter if you're comfortable with Ubuntu or CentOS or Red Hat. I think that's irrelevant. I think that's going to come down to preference for the organization. All right. Let me jump to this right here, because I think I haven't spoken too much about this at all, but ISACA, which is a really great organization when it comes to information security and risk. They do have a certification called HOBIT, okay? Let me read this real quick. Take a look at our COBIT Design and Implementation Certificate. The COBIT Design and Implementation Certificate builds on your expertise in not just understanding COBIT, but also in implementing the globally accepted framework to maximize the value of enterprise information and technology. The certificate affirms your ability to understand, design, and implement programs for the enterprise governance of IT, okay? You've heard me throw around the term governance in this space a lot, because governance is how we deal with technologies within the organization as well as the enterprise wide, right? You have information security governance, you have risk governance, you have all sorts of governance structures within an organization. When it comes to system engineering, you're pretty much going across the stack horizontally to understand the governance structure at that level. Everybody has to play by a set of rules. And what governance does is it puts guardrails in place as to what we can and what we cannot do. That being said, who would benefit from COVID design and implementation? IT professionals seeking executive positions, teams and individuals looking to implement an IT governance solution. Network security all falls under security operations governance, okay? Network engineering, NetEng or SysEng, they all have their own governance stacks. I think it varies for organization, but there's going to be something there. If there's not something there, when you get audited, they'll let you know that you need to have this in place. You may be that person to actually do it. I've seen it myself. All right, it says what you'll learn with COVID design and implementation, COVID basic concepts, impact of design factors, implementing and optimizing information and technology governance overview, key topic decision matrix. So a decision matrix is if A, then B, okay? You have to determine what the input and the output is going to be for every decision that gets made, such as acceptable risk and risk mitigation and transference of risk and things like that. Like, for example, if we had a firewall, like an ASA firewall that was on its last patch, but it's doing its job, we may want to accept that risk for right now until we can find another replacement. And that replacement may not come for another 6 to 9 months. We're okay with that risk because it's at a remote site. We don't have any critical data and assets there. As long as there's a firewall there that's compliant, then we're pretty much okay with that, right? And so that's part of the key decision matrix. Design factors for governance systems, the governance system design workflow. Again, how does this actually work out? How does it scale horizontally and vertically? Governance implementation lifecycle. How long are we going to hold on to this technology? 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? It all depends and varies for organizations. Okay. And so COVID has a lot of value from a managerial standpoint and from an administration standpoint, because it puts everybody on the same level when it comes to processes and governance. Okay? Every organization has to have some form of governance. So it's just a matter of who's implementing it and how is it being managed. So these are the 3 factors that I look at when it comes to SysEng from what I've known in the workplace. And I would say there's probably, you could probably throw in PMP, project management professional, but I think that's, I think you have separate groups that do project management rather than, your sys engineer. We usually always have a dedicated person to keep track of stuff because you want to have separation of duties, or SOD. That being said, let's get to some of the questions. All right, let me scroll up, man. Ronan Unsung says, a lot of sys and network admin roles still focus on end user support too. This is true. This is absolutely true. Yeah, a lot of people think they're going to get away from end user support. Nope, you still got to answer questions. Yeah, Ronan Unsung says definitely need to learn Linux. Yeah, man, my Linux is really rusty because I don't live inside that stack. I don't live inside that stack. Very, very rarely am I ever in there. I don't work as an ops person in that regard. Ronan Unsung says, I'll do that after Azure. I think what's funny is, we're in Azure shop now, but where I was before, we were at AWS shop. And so there's probably some nuance there that I'm still learning, but it's a matter of which environment has their preference, right? Which organization has their preference where they choose Azure for whatever reason versus AWS for whatever reason. KEJ says, I'll definitely notice that getting trapped in the in that help desk. Yeah, I think help desk has its life cycle. I think that I think 18 months is usually, you know, where you want to be at the help desk. I know somebody who was spending 5 years at the help desk, but you know, they were a senior person. But maybe that was their you know, due to life choices and situations. I think that's where they got, you know, that was where they could be at. So yeah, Ronnie Sung says, same here. Something I'm working to get out of, which is why I'm looking to get into other organizations and companies. Yeah, I think that certs are going to play a significant role when you try to get out. I think that certs is going to play a significant role. Complex design says not to be confused with SYSBM. Yeah. Although you can actually look at it that way too. C-Bus Jones says, would it be smart to buy the bootcamp now, even though I probably wouldn't start it until I finish my CompTIA certs? That's a tricky question. If you got the coin to spend, I think maybe you can do that. It depends on where you are with your CompTIA certs. If you're getting A+, Network Plus, maybe that might be something, you know, within the next 30 days, next 45 days. I think that makes a lot of sense. But if you're, you know, 3, 4, 5 months away from your CompTIA certs, maybe it's not a good idea. Mostly because there's an expiration date on those boot camps and whatnot. I think the clock starts ticking as soon as you purchase it. Hey, what's going on, MGTOW Universe? It says my toxic self would say go for both. See, the thing here is this: the market is moving away from that. Okay, market is moving away from these dual titles and stuff like that. Like they don't want a SysAdmin and a network admin. We just call it IT ops. You know, we don't have that anymore. That stuff went away after COVID, or at the start of COVID, that went away. Everybody just became IT ops. Ryle, what's going on? LOM, what's going on? Yeah, KEJ says CCNA is a good route for sure. You can't go wrong. Nobody ever gets fired for buying Cisco nor getting certified in it. So, Alonzo, what's going on? Yeah, KEJ says shell scripting. Yep. Aquatech, what's going on? LOM, A+ certs. Yeah, I feel like if you don't have an A+ cert, you're on the help desk or desktop support, you know, I kind of question why, you know, how you got by without it. I'd be interested in knowing that. But everybody should have their A+ at this point. MGTOW Universe says bash and shell. Yep. MGTOW asked about thoughts on Red Hat certs. Yeah, I think I spoke about that earlier, maybe before you came in, but I don't know anybody who went out and got a Red Hat cert, mostly because it's never been questioned. Red Hat certs make a lot of sense if the organization is going to pay for it, because you may go into an organization that does not use Red Hat at all. Like, for example, at one organization I was at a few years ago, they were a strictly Ubuntu shop. That was it, complete Ubuntu. They had no interest in Red Hat. It was more cost effective for them, I guess. That was their choice, you know, and they were a startup. They weren't going to pay whatever service fees that Red Hat at the time was maybe charging. And maybe they saved a bundle of money doing that. Yeah, LeRenard Technology says the Red Hat certs are big in the government sector. That's true, because you know, government trusts Red Hat because they're an American company, and they got a big contract with the government, and so goes the rest of the neighborhood, right? Keep it techie, what's going on? Yeah, engineering cannabis was going on. Help desk, spend 2 years, then move. Yep, that's usually It's usually the modus operandi. Yeah, AO says, I'm working on my CCNA now. Yeah, good luck, man. Good luck. I'm a visual person, so I look at video instructors a lot. I use CBT nuggets. At least in the past, I've used CBT nuggets. And what I have found is that if I go through the videos enough and then breeze through like the books, because I don't necessarily have to read every single chapter. If I already grasp the concept, then I'm pretty good. And so watching the video first, what I have found is beneficial before reading the book. And then when I read the book, I only need to go over areas that I need to fill the gaps on when it comes to knowledge. So, and then I can go take the cert. I'm usually that way. And I usually keep it down to like, let's say if it has 10 chapters, I might keep it down to 1 chapter a day. I may spend 1 chapter a day and I may go through it that way, right? And I'm a pretty, for me, highlighting is really necessary for me to remember. And so a lot of my books are so torn up with highlighting and whatnot. I couldn't give these books away, you know, even if I wanted to, because, you know, they have so many markings and highlightings and things like that in there for things that I need to remember. It's kind of useless to you. You can't read anything in there, so. Keep it techie, what's going on? Prof, what's going on, man? BK Burners, looking to get into tech. I was thinking about cybersecurity. Do you have a specific sector I should look into first? Here's the thing about cybersecurity. My thing about cybersecurity is that it was sold a couple of years ago as, you know, the hottest thing to get into. And they would be right that there's a lot of quote unquote job security in there. The only thing here is people who work in cybersecurity usually have a background in something relevant to IT. And from my experience, they don't want anybody touching their stuff and messing with their stuff if they don't have any experience. And so I don't know really where this, you know, this notion came about where, oh, well, you can just, you know, get into cybersecurity with no experience. I'm sorry, but everybody I work with does not have that background. They usually have a really critical background in something relevant to information technology. They don't just let everybody touch their stuff, so to speak. You know, they don't want everybody inside the SOC or having access to certain systems and seeing certain types of data. They just don't want that. And it's no disrespect or offense to anyone. It's just, you don't have enough bandwidth to start training somebody from 0 to 100.
No, you find your way into that space to a large extent, right? Like you, like, so like perfect example, I'll just kind of relate my own little experience, right? When I was working for Apple, you know, in terms of like, you know, the 2-factor side of things, unlocking devices and all that kind of stuff, right? You get to a point where you start to learn the inner workings, and then that kind of opens you up into, you know, like, let's just say sectors within the company that specializes in dealing with security measures and stuff. That's kind of like how you kind of maybe will find your way in there. It's like having a base knowledge or understanding. So, you know, my assumption here is a lot of these certs and boot camps and things that you covered this evening would lend one to put them in that environment where they could then find their way onto that pathway into cybersecurity. Am I off on this, or?
No, you're actually you're hitting the nail on the head. I think at some point there was a demand for a lot more cybersecurity analysts, and they didn't know how to fill that vacuum. But in reality, they were trying to sell books and boot camps and other sort of source material in order to turn, in my opinion, to trying to turn revenue. Because everybody I've worked with in cybersecurity had a really robust background in something. They weren't just coming from zero. Typically, when I was coming into the industry of IT, everybody started off on help desk. That was like a rite of passage. Now it's like, no, we're going to skip past help desk and we're going to go straight to cybersecurity. And it's like, whoa, I don't know if I want you on these multi-million-dollar systems. We spend a lot of money on security and tech. And so why are we putting, because what's happening in cybersecurity is that there's a lot of burnout. And so why are we taking inexperienced people and dumping them inside environments without any proper training to understand what it is that they're doing? And so the burnout becomes quick because you get confused, you get exhausted, you get alert fatigue, and then you're out. And that's typically the life cycle of cybersecurity. And so that's why you see so many positions open, and then they go out there and they say, oh man, we had the cybersecurity bootcamp and we trained, this many X amount of people, and we got them jobs. And I know what the life cycle is. I've seen people come and go, get chewed up and spit out through the grinder. And so we just do a poor job at cultivating talent, and that's kind of why we do these tech talks, is that there's a lot of anxiety, specifically with Black people, especially Black men, where they may be the only one in the room and they don't have anybody to turn to because there's so much misandry against Black men. And there's also misogyny against Black women too. But you see a lot more, I think the misandry is a lot more pronounced for Black men. And so Black men code switch a lot, but that adds to the burnout. And so you see a lot of guys come over here because it's refreshing to hear other Black men speak on a panel to something that they've experienced. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm not the only one. But in reality, you're the only one in that room, but you don't really have a pathway to victory to get to that next level, primarily because there's a proverbial glass ceiling that is real, and you're running into this because they're keeping you there for that very reason until you burn out, and then you leave on your own. And so it's crazy. This is crazy. I just think that they do a very poor job at cultivating talent, because let's throw as many human bodies, much human capital as possible at it, and it'll solve its own issue. No, that's not how it works. And that's why we're having this issue right now. And so to BK Burner's point or question, it's difficult, man. I would never recommend you jump right in head first into cybersecurity and then, you end up with such a bad experience. I know a lot of people who just left cybersecurity and just go do something else with their life. Okay. Blaze, what's going on, bro? And so, yeah, I just, I think that the SysEng title will be a deciding factor in getting hired for certain roles, especially if you're trying to get out of like a help desk role or something like that. And I think there's boot camp here. Let me make sure I put my mouse back on there.
Sure.
I think this boot camp is a game changer. Now, it's not guaranteed you're going to get a job, but I think that in my experience of dealing with Linux Foundation, their source material is pretty good, but you have to be dedicated to it. And I don't think if you haven't passed A+ or Network Plus, I don't think you're going to be able to get past this at all. That's me being honest. I don't think you're going to get past that. BK Burners asked the question, what sector would you recommend I start then? I think the typical, for IT, I think the typical help desk is the proverbial start.
You're going to encounter security things at the help desk level, and that's what we were talking about, that pathway that sort of leads you if you want to become specialized in cybersecurity, right? It's like like I said, it kind of worked the same way for me when I was at Apple. Now, I didn't go into cybersecurity, but I could see how one would find their way into that when you have to understand all the various aspects of how the security features on the devices work, the software, et cetera, right?
Mhm.
So that's what, just let the brother know what you're referring to is like, yeah, starting at the help desk level, how that would lead you up into that.
Yeah, and that's I think help desk is misunderstood as some person with a headset with a boom mic on, and they don't really they're clipping their toenails or doing some other disgusting thing. What's going on here? Is it me or can let me stop the screen share for a second?
I can hear you fine.
No, I was trying to advance Prof, but
okay.
me too.
Okay.
No, the thing here is I think help desk gets a bad rep because there's this perception that, oh man, you're just sitting there in front of a computer, clipping your toenails and playing World of Warcraft like that on your phone and not doing much. No, there's a lot of things now that help desk is doing, especially with the pandemic. There's a lot more than what people can imagine. I don't have the patience right now to go back to help desk, but I can imagine what those guys are going through because they got to deal with a lot more platforms than what they used to. When I was in help desk, we had Blackberries to deal with. Now you got iPhones, you got Android, you got iPads, you got Chrome OS, Chromebooks and stuff like that. Now, man, I'm telling you, it's a lot more than what people can imagine. And so I'm saying all this so that people understand that there's nothing wrong with help desk. The problem isn't help desk. The problem is the culture. It's the culture itself of IT. IT is just, it was bro driven. Okay, there's a lot of white bros out there, and it had poor structuring, and that's why you have the ITIL, the IT infrastructure library. That's why they came out with that, was to create a service management foundation so that there was proper ways of really managing how organizations deal with service management. That being said, I think what has happened here is that Black people, and especially Black men, when they want to do diversity and inclusion, you got brought in easily through the help desk. And then that was it. They cut you loose there. You were on your own. You had to figure out your way up. So there was a lack of mentorship, a lack of guidance and stuff like that. And you had to kind of figure this out, become your own mercenary. And so the help desk got the bad rep, but in reality, help desk helped a lot of guys, break their way through the glass ceiling into IT. So. Hey, what's going on,
Mike?
Prof? What's going on? What's going on, Josh?
How you doing, man? How you doing, Mike?
I'm chilling,
What's
bro.
up, Complex? I
Hey,
know
what's going on,
PBO
bro?
got up here first, so I was gonna let him go if he wanted to go.
No, go ahead, keep it. You cool.
Okay.
Go ahead, man. You good.
No, I was just gonna add to what you were saying, Mike. You're 100% on point, about the rap that the help desk gets. But I also look at it this way as well. Like, it seems as though the perception of help desk, is not glamorized, similar to these other specialized positions. And that causes a issue as well, why people want to go on and skip it. They'll because I'm at fault for this too. I talk about the salaries. I talk about how much you can make in these higher level positions and all that stuff, and exclude the help desk. You know what I'm saying? Because those positions, they really don't pay, on the level that a lot of people say it. Or talk about those specialized, positions. So I think that's another thing, or another reason why a lot of people, I could just skip the help desk. Well, the help desk can help you because at the end of the day, you investing in yourself by working in one of those positions, because you'll get and understand the ins and outs of how the IT in general works for an organization. And so it is a benefit to go into, help desk from the beginning. So.
Absolutely. Prof.
No, I think you hit it right on the head. Like you said, I'm old, so in the old days, it was more of apprenticeship. Like you were programming and networking, then you went to senior, then you did something else, then you went into cybersecurity, right? Because now you have a breadth of knowledge of different things. Because when you come into cybersecurity, you got to secure the whole infrastructure. So you need to understand something about networking, Linux, Windows, right? Programming, application security, infrastructure security. So in the old days, you used to have some background in that so you can know how to secure it, right? But I think now with search, like you've talked about a lot of times, I think people try to skip and go right into cybersecurity without that background, right? Which is going to, you can get the bag, but you're going to be at a disadvantage because there's a lot of things you're never going to touch or understand or have any breadth of knowledge because you just never done it. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. So I tell people to, try a couple things, get your feet wet, specialize in something, Linux, programming, DBA. So when you go to security, you have something to hang your hat on. So
yeah, and it gives you some confidence as well. That's understated as well. That the ability to build up confidence, saying, "Oh, I know this because I've seen it before." Okay, and help desk is different now than what it was before. Before, help desk was kind of scripted as to what you're going to say based on what the call was going to be. You usually had 5 or 6 things that were kind of things that the organization's already seen before. Like, for example, a planned outage. You were kind of prepped for that. Now it's different because you got ransomware. And ransomware wasn't a thing when I was, in help desk, but now ransomware is a thing, and you may have to deal with a ransomware incident. And so you may get pulled into that tabletop exercise. You may get pulled into the FBI because FBI, DHS, they're all in the same facility when it comes to tabletop exercises for ransomware attacks and stuff like that, when you're doing prepping and stuff like that. And so you get that experience, that exposure to say, if this happens, help desk plays this role. Now you have a better understanding as to what goes into security. And what I have found, we took somebody from the help desk and we actually put them in the, security awareness team. So now they have an understanding of how to engage clients, but they also have an understanding now of what goes into security awareness. And so there are some levels of transition that can be done. You just have to be able to, have some patience, with the transition. And it may not happen in that organization. It may happen at a different organization. But to keep it Techie's point about the pay is low because India, snatched a lot of our, a lot of the quality of our pay. So.
Hi, this is Linda. I'm sorry.
No, that's funny. I got that. No, I see that. You should put the accent and say Linda. No, I'm just playing.
No, I gave it minimal accent. I wasn't really trying to overdo it.
No, that's good. That's good. I want you to get flagged today.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Subtlety is the key here.
No, that's true. But like Mike said, I run tabletop exercises all the time. So you're going to work with different departments on tabletop. And one of those definitely is the help desk. Right. So we bring those guys in because it might be malware on a machine. So we hey, you need to go get that machine, quarantine it, and just don't play around. Just wipe it and reinstall everything. We got a weird beacon in, like you said, from ransomware. It's beacon China. Just erase it, right? But we got to get a help desk in tier 1 into finding the people. Where's the laptop? How do you re-image the laptop? We need to, do that ASAP. And so, like you said, all those different departments from cybersecurity and I'm looping those into those exercises so they can become aware, because I actually started as programming and it's called Purple Team, right? So I started doing application security to get me into security because once again, I programmed and most of your attacks come in web servers a lot of times. So how do you secure the web server, SQL injection, OWASP top 10, right? From a programming application security. So that's how I transitioned into cybersecurity. 20 years ago. So
yeah. Yeah, and then you get hit with Java exploits, and that's where somebody like Keep It Techie comes in, because his job is to patch those SQL servers and those Java servers that's connected to them.
Right. Keep It Techie know about them stigs. We got to come out with them hardening stigs to lock everything down. Go ahead.
Yeah, you guys are right. Yep.
Yeah. So once again, I have cybersecurity. So my job is to work with Keep It Techie as a DBA, the Java programs, to make sure they're hardening at a certain level, right? Mm-hmm. It could be FERPA for education, HIPAA, IRS Pub 1075, MARCI for Social Security Office. There's a lot of different compliances that you need to make sure you're secure for that particular agency or that particular company doing business with that agency. So
yeah, we actually got one coming up, PBO, that we're preparing for. They always come into the different sites and then randomly pick servers. Sometimes we get a little heads up, but most of the time it's random. They'll pick random SQL servers we have, within that location, and then we go through and do stigs on them.
Yeah, it's random for you, but like you said, when we get them, they put their scope of work, and like you said, whatever random servers end up in their scope of work, right? Then we're gonna come to you and be like, okay, are they hard? And we need to run a Nexus scan to make sure everything's locked down. And part of the shout out to networking. How's the traffic get to the SQL servers? It coming from the internet, private subnets, right? So you need to understand all of that, right, from an infrastructure standpoint. So let me get off my soapbox. We'll go ahead and run an audit real quick tonight. No, I'm just playing.
No, because you're right. Institutional knowledge matters. And whether you're in healthcare or you're in the auto industry or you're in the energy and gas industry, that area, electricity and stuff like that, SCADA systems like we were talking about earlier, that institutional knowledge helps ease the impact of landing and, getting your feet wet, right? And so somebody in the chat room, I just saw that just pop up. MGTOW Universe says, I had a few people complain that some help desk roles now require ITIL ServiceNow certs. I still think A+ is still better than both, with the exception of the SN Dev certs. So the thing here is not a ServiceNow cert, but it's ITIL. So ITIL is the organization that manages the infrastructure library for service management, and ServiceNow is the company that does the the help desk software, right? They do the software. So there's a marriage between the two that is kind of inseparable. You can't really talk about service management without talking about what ServiceNow does, because they've been instrumental in that platform. Now you do have Jira, but Jira is more comes in at the DevOps side, and you don't really manage help desk in the same way that DevOps culture manages, iterative task. And so it's a little bit different, but you don't need ServiceNow cert, but the ITIL cert makes a lot of sense to have the foundation cert. That's all you really need, mostly because many organizations are way more complex now than what they were before, primarily because they have too many different systems. They have too many different spliced organizations. It used to just be like marketing, and then it became, you used to just have marketing, networking, technology, 4 or 5 different organizations within an organization, no matter how big it was. Now you have variety of different organizations. You have different sort of Active Directory domains. You have different sort of RBACs, different sort of security architectures, and different sort of technology architectures all integrated into one organization now. And so in order to keep pace with that, you had to have a better understanding of how service management was going to function, or else it's going to be really, really messy. Just no different than an Active Directory forest. If you didn't fix that stuff from the jump, if you didn't build it from the ground up to be expansive like that, it was going to be a mess. Okay, it was just going to be a mess. And so I think that ITIL serves as perfect, and it's not that difficult of an exam to pass. It's 40 questions. You need 26 correct before you can pass it. And so you only need to take it once. You don't need to take it multiple times.
Yeah, like you said, ServiceNow is a product and it's a very expensive product. So unless you work for a company of any size, most people ain't gonna run ServiceNow. It's just kind of pricey. My last client was running it, but they were kind of choking on the price of it. So
you don't get fired for Cisco, you don't get fired for IBM, you don't get fired for ServiceNow. That's just kind of the rule of thumb.
Used to be Oracle, used to be in there. I grew up on Oracle, so now you're right. You pick those big technologies and
well, AWS came in and ate the lunch of Oracle, right?
Yeah,
that kind of happened. So
Oracle still got a lot, but now you're right. AWS gonna take them out in probably the next 10 years. They slowly but surely, because they got their Aurora and their data warehousing, and so they got a ton of commodity databases that they're running. That's like you said, super good.
Well, big banks still rely on Oracle, and a lot of your old hospitals, your legacy hospitals, they still rely on Oracle because that was where their PHI is all stored, and that's how their medical databases were stored. They're just trapped all on these sort of legacy systems that they can't get off of. But companies that are new and have the ability to pivot, they got off of that stuff years ago.
What are the airports and stuff on? Just out of curiosity.
That system is so old. That goes back to the 80s, man. Yeah, that goes back to the 80s.
That's IBM DB2 probably. I mean, like they said, those systems old. They haven't upgraded them yet either.
And they can't.
They're scared.
Yeah, they can't.
Yeah,
they can't. It's just because the database. That's what happened back in January when the airports went down across the country. Because the database file got corrupt. It was so big. And it's just an ongoing database file. There's nothing they can do about it. There's nothing they can do about that, man. I don't care who you hire. Whoever takes on that job, good luck. What's going on, Paul?
What's going on, y'all?
Hey, Paul, what's up, man?
What's going on, fellas? Question and a comment. Well, first, the comment is that, yeah, you're not kidding about that, man. There's some legacy stuff that's sticking around here. When I worked for a server manufacturer, I had to learn a version of Linux, HPUX, because that's what's running the telephone switching servers for a bunch of the telecommunications, big companies. And I mean, those things have literally been sitting in place for 20, 25, 30 years. But it taught me a really good lesson is that I think, and this here was my question, Linux, I think, is a recommendation that I make to a lot of people, no matter what discipline they're in, because it's a common thread that runs through a lot of this stuff. And it's forward compatible as well, because, I mean, a lot of the cloud console communication that you do with the services that you may have running on, it doesn't matter. The cloud service provider, AWS, Microsoft's Azure, anybody's stuff, Google's Google Cloud Console, like they all have basically just a bash terminal shell that you use to log in, and you can configure services and check running services and such like that. So the comment is that, yes, there's a bunch of old crap out there, and it's a bunch of money to be made in either virtualizing that stuff or containerizing it. And the question is do you think that Linux is a good line to run through all of that stuff? Because once you get some basic conversant skills in that, then you can communicate with a lot of very old stuff and a lot of very new stuff.
I would say yes, but then the question becomes, is that the final destination for it? Because that's kind of how Carbon Black, that's how they cut their teeth into the game, right? You had a lot of decrepit tech debt, right? Like we're speaking about, that was unsecure or insecure. And machines were getting popped, these terminals at these airports, these McDonald's machines, banks, and ATMs and stuff like that. And so Carbon Black came up with the concept, or Bit9, I should say, but Carbon Black also came up with this concept that they were going to wrap this thing inside something called a container. And that solved a lot of the issues, 99% of the issues. But now you have containers that are easy to pop now too. And so my thing here is, don't we want to just get off of the technology? Like we want to move to microservices and just kind of, decommission a lot of that old stuff. I don't know if I have the patience to do it, but I can see the money, the financial aspect, the monetization behind that. So.
Yeah, my personal experience is that, like, when it comes to technological issues,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, there are people that enjoy forging, new paths, but normally companies are real slow to do that. And there's a lot of money to be made in taking a lot of these old legacy systems. And I mean, containerizing stuff ain't bad necessarily, as long as you have enough network and knowledge in order to make sure that, like, your traffic is routed in a secure and efficient manner. But again, like, that's just going to be another ticket to entry, and I think that that's a problem for the company, a huge opportunity for the community, right? Like, because if we just start emphasizing, like, some of this more base level stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it'll mean that additional people, when they come in, will not only be able to just do basic troubleshooting, but also basic network configuration, basic communication and troubleshooting on networking issues. And that just makes them more valuable employees. And that just gets them, like, greater access and moves them along more quickly,
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're an organization that can do that, by all means, man, you can make a lot of money doing that. That's how Carbon Black cut their teeth. That's why they ended up getting bought out by VMware. VMware ended up buying them. Let me see. VMware is, yeah, let me see. $4.8 billion.
Wow.
Yeah, that's no joke, man. I think I was my second year into managing virtualization infrastructure using VMware before I figured
Mm-hmm.
out that, man, VMware ain't nothing but a GUI. I mean, there's a lot of different components that they add to it, but it's just a
Mm-hmm.
version of Linux, with a GUI interface on top of it as well, man. So, like, I keep finding it keeps coming back to Linux, man. So, like, I always encourage, because if you can get basically conversant in Linux, then it will teach you the basics of networking. It'll teach you the basics of systemd, like, looking at, like, ongoing running services. It'll teach you the basics of communication between nodes. It'll teach you a lot of the basics that you need in order to go in a lot of different directions,
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. But what I've noticed, and maybe others on the panel could chime in, Linux systems today are moving more towards the GUI, and Windows with Azure is moving more towards the command line. And so I just find this interesting. I guess Microsoft kind of listened to the open source community and said, oh, well, you guys like command line, so we put a command line in your command line for you. And in the Linux sector, it's like, oh, well, command line's too tough, so let's add a GUI to it.
Well, I think, and you're 100% right. I think they were solving two different problems. And I've done Linux for a long time. Linux is when you spin up multiple servers and you need to script something up. Linux was built for that, right? So then, like Mike said, it was hard. So then they wanted to make it a little easier. Windows were easier, but now they need to script stuff in Azure, because if you're going to spin up 100 VMs, you can't point and click that up, right? You got to script that up. So I think they're both trying to, work on the other strength. Because like I said, Linux command line was so hard, but you could script something up. But they put the GUI in for the novice, and the novice had Windows. But now, like you said, in Azure, you're going to spit up, 100 Unixes, you got to script it up, even with PowerShell.
Not anymore, Prof. Not with ChatGPT.
No, that's true. That's true. And two is I use Cloud Formation, which is their scripting tool, right? So you do a couple YAML statements, right? You can build all that stuff up, right? But when something breaks and I need to go look at a specific box to see what's going on, I have to do Linux commands, right, to figure out what's going on. Maybe I didn't build it right or something didn't get started up right. So I got to be able to, go in the VI, LS, look at PS minus EF to look at some processes running to make sure the web server running right. Those are Linux commands. Shout out to Keep It Techy. I'm pumping out his course. It's a great course. So if you're trying to get in Linux, Keep It Techy's got a free class. Go check him out. It's a great Linux primer. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say that I was reading some stuff about what Microsoft plans to do with ChatGPT from a cloud perspective. And, they're already working on, the automation factor with ChatGPT for spinning up Azure servers and whatnot and bringing them down. It's some incredible things that they're talking about doing. And, some of the demonstrations I was looking at last week, and I was like, oh man, this is going to simplify a lot of things. And so it's going to reduce. So what ChatGPT is doing to the cloud is what low code, no code did for programming, right? You didn't need, before you would have need to know the rites of passage, right? You went through PowerShell, you went through command line, and then you went to C, and then you went to C++, and then you went to Java. There was a linear path to programming that people had to go through. Now what they've done with ChatGPT is if they've taken a lot of the manual labor of dexterity with your fingers for spinning up different services and products, and they've put that into ChatGPT. And so I don't know where they are with it as of right now, but I think that that's their ambitions, is to kind of simplify, because they know that companies are going to be hybrid cloud and multi-cloud. Some companies are going to have AWS and they're going to diversify their portfolio. And so what they're looking at is this total aspect. I say all that to say that there's some major changes coming down the pipe. It's not going to have any immediate impact on us, but it's going to be a different sort of perspective that we're typically used to. And so that's why, I was asking Paul about how far do you want to go with this? Because I think there's so many changes coming down the pipe, man. I don't know how to really honestly answer that question, because if you want to get off of the legacy because of tech debt and stuff like that, I think there may need to be, like, I was at an organization some years ago, and they had these Nokia servers, man. I don't know what those servers did, and nobody knew what those servers did. And when it came to a DR test, no one was prepared to deal with it because no one knew what those servers were doing, and there was no documentation behind it. And so what do you do in that aspect, right? You don't want to shut it down, and you don't really want to decommission it. What are you going to do? But that's a Paul question.
Yeah, I can tell you from personal experience. Like, I work for a car manufacturer, and these cats, like, their warehouse reports were getting printed on a dot matrix printer. And when one of the
SCSI.
Exactly. And when one of these the little springs on the inside broke, they had to order one from Germany because they don't manufacture those things. They haven't manufactured those things for 15 years, man. But the line that I see, and the line that I personally took, was that, like, those same type of skills, when the companies wanted to start virtualizing, those dusty old servers and turning them into just, virtual machines that ran on brand new servers. Well, you would have to gradually, learn, the requests that they were getting and how to respond to them. But then, like, when you virtualize it and put it on a new server, well, you could put 20 of those old servers on a new server and still not reach, 20% capacity. You were good. Like, you could go forever. And I think that a lot of similar things are going to happen throughout the industry over the next 5 or 10 years. And yeah, like, when they roll ChatGPT into that and, like, start getting a more conversant system that can, like, get those specs and do it, like, in a blazingly fast amount of time. But the one thing that I would say be careful of is this: automatic always costs more, right? Like, and companies are going to be looking to do that, but then they're going to start looking to do it on the cheap. And that's when I think that skill gap or that knowledge gap is going to be really beneficial and really profitable. to anybody that can, dig down deeper into it. And the good thing is that you won't need to have the exact answers instantly because nobody will have them. Like nobody knows what that old crap was meant to do. But if you could figure it out, like given time and incrementally, man, they'll pay you the entire time that you're sitting there playing with that crap.
Absolutely. Because they want to hold somebody accountable, right? Somebody has to answer to something. But that's part of Infosys. That's how they cut their teeth into the game, doing the exact same thing, transformation. I just don't think that a lot of companies are prepared to really jump into a lot of this digital transformation. I just think that what I have found is that burnout is one cause, and then the other factor is they can go make some money somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? Your IT sys engineers and stuff like that. They don't need to. They don't feel like hanging around anymore because leadership. They're button heads with leadership because leadership says, no, this is an aircraft carrier, and we're going to turn around in the time it takes to turn an aircraft carrier around. If that takes 6, 9, 12, 24 months, then so be it. I've ran into that myself recently. They're just stubborn. Somebody, they're just in a position of power, and there's nothing you can do about that. And unless you bark really loud, and then you risk, having your badge turned off or something like that. It's go ahead.
You think some of that's risk? Because I work for those big companies, and I talk to those CIOs and CEOs. That risk scares them, man, because if you F that up, they're toast. So right. So from their perspective, right? Because like you said, I've done big migrations from mainframe to Oracle to client servers. Man, those things are risky and super hard. And like you said, half the time people don't even know what the code base did.
And the people who had the knowledge, the institutional knowledge of it, are gone.
Been gone, way gone. So the executives, they're risk averse. So that's why they said that carrier, they're like, we're gonna need to turn that around slowly, because if that gets effed up, people get fired, Mike.
Yeah, and the shit rolls downhill, and then it hits people like us. And there's always a black man, last to be hired, first to be fired. That's usually the model.
No, facts. I've been there, and like you said, and usually, you're the only one in there, man. So it's a different feeling. It's a lonely feeling. It's a lonely feeling.
That has always amazed me, man. Like, I've worked for some very big names, and it's crazy because, like, one situation came down where a supplier, their component was failing in the vehicle manufacturer that I work for, and I had to set up this whole lab where they were taking calls. And I mean, the story was on the news and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, like, at the end of the day, man, it's my brown ass walking back and forth, doing this stuff, getting these people all set up, and this is on the news. It's crazy, but at the end of the day, they could talk about whatever they want to talk about. It's going to be some black or brown or white guy walking around with his boots on the ground, like getting the infrastructure set. But the good thing about it is that project lasted 6 months. And once it was up and running, all I did was sit there and babysit it.
And it bees like that. It definitely bees like that.
Yeah, I've done a few like that. Once you get it going, like you said, and you just got to babysit it, and hopefully, you did it right so it can scale and do everything it needs to do. So those are risky too.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make the best of it, right? If there's no pathway to leadership for you, you just playing your transition out. That's all you can really do. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm babysitting, but I'm missing opportunities at the same time.
No, that's true. Like, I was just lucky enough when I was babysitting, I had enough power where I was babysitting the Oracle database, and I was cool with the infrastructure guys. So I was like, put me up a Java server. I want to learn Java. And they spun it up, and I just taught myself Java while I was babysitting, right? So sometimes you can multitask and make that happen.
That's exactly what I was going to chime in and say, PBO. Use that extra time where you babysitting to learn another skill that can, help you, like all the technologies that we've been talking about on this channel. I mean, on this panel. But yeah, I've ran into just to chime in on what you guys were saying earlier, or Paul brought up. Yeah, one of the things we do is just turn off the server for like a week to see if somebody started yelling. If we run into systems that have been sitting around the environment that we don't know what's going on with that system, just turn it off. And I know I'm just throwing it out there. That's what we've done, you know what I'm saying, in our environment. And then if somebody starts screaming, and then turn it back on. And that way we can figure out, because a lot of times there's no documentation on the owner or the server owner of the application that's running on the front end of that server. So that'll kind of weed it out. But go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No. I was just gonna ask, because if you turn a device off, then what happens here is your vulnerability management, if it scans every weekend or it scans every day or something like that, whatever the schedule is, it's gonna see that device is offline, and that's gonna throw the metrics off too. Because if it was online the last 6 months untouched, and then it just suddenly goes down, then it's going to see a dip in the metrics. And when you send that up to directors and to CISO's going to ask, what the hell just happened?
Oh yeah. And definitely not just turn it off, go through the procedures of letting people know, the people that have the monitoring software on those servers, let them know that this system is going to be going down, because we're trying to figure out, what's actually running towards this server. So they'll have heads up once they get those alerts. And then anyway, I think you get what I'm saying.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, but no, you're right. But once again, GRC and cybersecurity, part of what we do on a monthly and quarterly basis is we got to run that inventory, so we account for everything. So if it's not in our inventory, keep it, take your shit, nobody be running if it's not in our inventory, right? So that's part of securing your stuff, is figuring out what you own. Like, but I went in organizations that didn't have a good inventory list. But when part of cybersecurity, first thing is we got to know what we have, so we know how to secure it. That goes from everything from phones, servers, tablets, right? So all that, once again, is part of GRC and inventory, so we know what to secure it and how to secure it.
Yeah, that becomes a part. That's why I put the COVID up before, COVID, not COVID, from Izaka, right? And so that's an important piece.
Definitely.
Governance is an important piece. IT governance is an important piece. And a lot of guys, or a lot of people, I should say, don't take this seriously enough to really understand that, it's not about me just loading up a switch here and a router here and a firewall there. And no, man, there's a lot more granularization and process inside the enterprise than what you may think is going on. I mean, you look at some of these videos on YouTube, you see guys, some of these channels, I won't comment on the gender aspect, but people selling this idea that, if you just do this and do that, then you'll get into cybersecurity and you'll do that. No. And these content creators make bundles of money selling, falsities to people in the space, 200,000, 500,000 views, for this long-haired person. And I'm like, nah, that's just not true. That's just not true. Or some of these other videos that I'm seeing, like, my first day at AWS, and this person's like sipping this big mug of who knows what's in there. I think it's just water personally. I don't know if it's coffee, but, and they're selling this sort of fantasy of a day in the life of a Amazon worker or my day in the life as an AWS person. I'm like, this is really bad information, man. They're really selling you, a fantasy. And I feel like a lot of Black men gravitate towards that now, because you do have a lot of Black content creators who do sell this other fantasy that Black men are just making it in these organizations. I'm like, this is so not true. Okay. You're not just walking around, and you're just happy like that. I don't know any Black man in any organization in IT that is walking around with a Kool-Aid smile. No way.
No,
Nah.
that's I think
Yeah,
that's
most
the
people be stressed out.
Yeah, man.
facts, man.
I know I do.
Facts.
It's crazy, man. It's just crazy. I just think that you don't have to lie to kick it, man. I know how difficult it is, man. Amazon 6-7 rounds interviews,
Oh my God.
Google, Facebook, they're all the same way, man. You got to fit into their culture. And if any black man can usually if they can get, a black man inside these organizations, for a black woman, it might be a little bit different because they can kind of code switch in a way because they're women first before anything else. But when it comes to black men, I don't know too many guys in there that are, really running around and just making shit shake like that. I don't see it happening like that, man. A lot of the people I talk to offline, and I've met in person at some of these conferences, they're like, man, I need some mentorship, man. I need some guidance. Have you ever done it? Have you ever been through this situation? Have you ever been through that situation? It has less to do with the technology. It has a lot to do with life experiences and workplace experiences. And I think that, I do these tech talks because I don't want black men being sold these fantasies that they see on some of these other channels and outside of the, the manosphere, metaverse, whatever you want to call it. And they end up, not getting a call back for a role or, getting trapped in a help desk role because they didn't do their due diligence because someone sold them a fantasy. And unfortunately, I'm talking to people in Africa, on a regular basis, man. And they're like, how come I'm not getting a call back? And I'm like, yo, man, it's hard to pronounce your name, bro. It's one of those things. So it's one of those things, man. They are very adverse to brothers being in the workplace like that. And so to Paul's point, transformation, Africa is full of transformation right now. They're going through a transformation period, and there's not enough human capital over there to really get them up to 4th and 5th and 6th industrialization. One of the things that I've noticed is a lot of their infrastructure technology, airports, gas and oil, banking, hospitals, medical, all of that stuff is 20th century right now, all of it. I don't care if it's 1999, that's still 20th century. That is decrepit. And so to your point, there is a lot of opportunity to start doing transformation in these areas.
I think, as a matter of fact, I was just having this conversation a little bit ago, that over the next 20 years, because something that I've seen traveling internationally is that what'll happen is, so call it 1980 to 2020, a lot of unindustrialized places are just skipping over that technological period. Like, for example, I was in a couple of places in Mexico, and they had better Wi-Fi than the US. East Asia, Far East Asia is the same way. Like, I think Singapore is a really good example. Like, they didn't go through the 80s technologically. They didn't go through the 90s or the early 2000s. They just skipped straight to 2020. And I think that's going to happen a lot in Africa as well, because like, as soon as one of these internet service satellite providers wins out, and you can, get a 2 megabit connection, as long as you can get a clear line of sight to a satellite, boy, please, like, there's your digital infrastructure right there. And I think when like they build some sort of machine that'll print a road, well then boom, like a lot of these places in Africa like are instantly and automatically on the same level. There's a lot of investment from the Chinese government in Africa because they're trying to position and capitalize themselves. But I think that if this East African Union gets together, they may beat them to the punch because they're already there.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. That is a very good point. I do think that a lot of your lesser politically stable states is what I'm referring to, like some of your interior states, Central African Republic and those sort of areas. They have a lot of difficulty making that transition because there's a lack of organization to actually do so. To be honest, a lot of them lack an IT ministry, ministry of ICT. They lack that. And so, and if they do have it, they lack proper governance to back it all up. And so The fastest place I've seen, make these sort of transitions has been Rwanda. They seem to have really gotten a good grip on what they want and what their ambitions are, and try to materialize their ambitions. South Africa is obvious, they're a front runner in the continent, but Egypt, I would say they're probably right behind South Africa, but Morocco is pretty adept as well. But in my experience, a lot of your interior states that were politically unstable 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago, they had a difficult time making that transition. And I think there's a lot of opportunity. As you say, they just skip over certain technologies, but some companies may be averse to doing business there because they may be on the U.S. blacklist. I remember looking at the blacklist a couple of years ago, 7 countries on there: Syria, North Korea, Cuba, Iran. Now Russia is on there. What's the other one? Eritrea, they're another one that's on there now. And so Venezuela is on there now, Yemen. And so the list starts growing every single administration. So it makes it difficult to really, do I bring Windows into here or do we skip Windows? What do we do here? So. All right, cool, man.
Yeah, I totally,
no, go right ahead, please.
I was just gonna add to what you just said, man. That kind of reminds me of an article I read a while back. I think Russia totally got rid of Windows on Microsoft and a lot of their government, computers and everything, servers, all that stuff, and they actually switched to Linux. So, but anyway, man, I know you finna end it, so go ahead, man. That's all I wanted to say.
No, and because they were able to build their own kernel. They were able to spin up their own kernel. That's what happens when you have the human capital and the political will to do something. They knew that at some point they were going to be cut off, and they didn't want to be caught with their pants down, so to speak. But I was listening to a interview with the CEO of Microsoft, Nadella. He said that they still support Russia. They said they have obligations, and they're not going to abandon any Russian organizations that still use their products. And so a lot of the hospitals are still wedded to these sort of Windows 7 embedded systems and Windows 8 and stuff like that. They can't get off of the systems because that's the way the devices were designed. You don't see Windows, but in the back, there's Windows embedded. And so they don't really have a way of getting off those systems. And so Microsoft said they're still going to support it because it just makes a lot more sense to do so, reputation-wise. All of the links are in the description beneath the video for anybody who has any questions in terms of what we covered so far and what I've covered so far. And if you're looking to make that purchase of that boot camp, it ends on February 28th. I think if you're ready to I think if you got your A+, you got your Network Plus, your Server Plus, I think the boot camps make a lot of sense. But if you don't have your A+, Network Plus, or Server Plus, or anything like that, none of the Contiva certs, I don't see the value in going after Linux Foundation or CCNP for that matter. I think that's a far-fetched, to be quite honest with you. Let me see these last comments. Ryle's talking about the gynocracy. Richard Dixon, I gotta postpone that, man. My schedule has changed, so I don't really have that sort of bandwidth. I'll have to look back again at that. Yeah, MGTOW Universe, man, you hit it right on the head, man. Make $11 million this year using trading bot made with ChatGPT type of stuff. Yep, there's a lot of that stuff going on out there, man. The scammers, yep, shifted from crypto to cybersec to now ChatGPT. I can't stand it, man. It's like nails to a chalkboard to me. There's so many of them, even non-tech people, man, in this space. They're like, Chat GPT is gonna, get your baby mama or something like that. Hide your wife, hide your kids, some shit like that. It's just, dudes talking about, man. But that's all I got for tonight, man. Any closing thoughts from the rest of you guys on the panel?
No, like you said, it was a great stream. I think there's a lot of technologies, a lot of ways to make money. Cybersecurity, like you said, SysAdmin, cloud, just pick something and just try to be great at it. But you got to build your foundation, and one of your foundations of that will be Linux. So that's my 2 cents on that. Great stream.
Yeah, same for me, Mike. Great stream, great topic, and I'm gonna definitely share that course out as well, that you're putting out. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate you doing this. This really helps people. So
yeah, thanks, gentlemen. Thank you.
Yeah, dope stream as always, Mike. We'll do it again.
No doubt. Thank you. And thank you to everyone else for joining, man. Please hit the like button on the way out and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust.